Hello and welcome to today's webinar. This is all about getting married. You have come here for relationship advice. No, you haven't. You've come here to figure out how to do your events to the best of your ability, and I am here to help you with that. My name is Felicia Asiedu. I am a senior marketing manager here at Cvent. I'm based in London, and I'm really happy to be doing this in our London office today. Now, I will share with you, just getting a bit personal with each other. This is my first webinar back in the office. So if anyone bangs on the door or starts laughing wildly outside, we'll be as shocked as each other because quite frankly, I've got used to doing these things at home. But that's that out of the way. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I want this webinar, as always, to be engaging, to be exciting, to be communicative between both you and I. So in order for us to do that, you've got to use some of the tools available to you. You are watching this webinar using Attendee Hub, which is fantastic. And I'm in Cvent Studio. And what that means is I can see when you put questions in and when you're chatting. So use the features available. If you are on your laptop or your computer, you'll see some buttons down the side and it will say chat and it will say Q&A. If you're on your phone, you'll see them at the bottom. Please use both. Get chatting, chat with each other, talk to each other about the problems you might be having in your relationships, maybe B2B or personal, who am I to say? But chat to me. I'm here, I'm live, I want to talk to you. Tell me where you're coming in from. I will react to you just to prove that I'm live, because then maybe you'll get more engaged. But that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about how to take these relationships from short-term, quick engagements, maybe like I just spoke to, but to long-lasting relationships. So with that, let's get going. So the best way for me to start this is, I think, to get, like I said, a little bit personal with you. Really and truly, what we're going to learn here today is that B2B relationships, the best B2B relationships, are built on getting a little bit more personal, taking things further than the day of communication or the day of event. So I'm going to start by sharing a little bit more about me, and maybe that will help you to understand what I'm trying to say as we go through this webinar. So my best long-term relationship is with this guy. He happens to be my husband. We've been married for about 13 years now, and we've known each other since we were 18. So it's been a pretty long time, but this is us when we were about 18 and 19, young, dumb, and in love. And we thought we knew everything, but actually we were probably pretty stupid. And we probably thought a lot about ourselves and, what we wanted. And so it was a bumpy start. He won't be upset with me sharing that. It was a real bumpy start. But as we got to know each other and we built more of a relationship, we've come together in such a way that we are a strong unit. We do lots of things together. We share with each other. We ask each other, what do you think? How should we do this? Which way should I move? Which way should I go? And so over the years, we've not only grown with each other, we've developed a community. We've made people. We decided that would be a great experiment, and we made more people to join in with our community. And these are my lovely children, and they're all part of it. And that is something that we've taken a long time to build. And as we go through today's presentation, you'll start to see some synergies between this little journey and the journey that you're going to have to go on with some of your prospects, customers, members, clients, whoever they might be. So remember I said when we were in that early stage of the relationship, it was pretty tough. And it was probably because both of us were thinking about me, 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 me. What's in it for me? Is he going to love me? How am I going to get, the best out of this? Is he going to take me out? Where's he going to take me? What are we going to buy? Blah, blah, blah. And on it goes. And this can be very similar with the relationships you have with suppliers, with colleagues, with friends, with customers. You're kind of thinking about what you can get out of the relationship. I'm sure when you engage with suppliers, you don't think, well, how can I support you in your business? You're probably more thinking, okay, I want the best deal with, cheapest price or whatever it is, so that it is good for you and good for your business rather than them. And I think it's that me that kind of makes the beginning of relationships tough. And actually, when we're talking about events and we're talking about marketing, people can kind of see through that, and they can see that you're only in it for yourself. You only called me because you want maybe numbers at your events. And so that makes the relationship kind of hard. And what I'm going to encourage you as we're thinking about building longer term relationships is to think maybe a bit less about yourself and to think more about those people that we mentioned. Now, I probably can't help you with your relationship with suppliers or your manager, but maybe some of this might. So for the purpose of this webinar today, What we're going to talk more about is your customers and your prospects. And for some of you, maybe members, because you're not always building, prospect groups, but you're thinking about those memberships. If you're an association, you want to know how to take those relationships and stretch them out and make them a lot longer than they are. So my first piece of advice, and if you take nothing else from this webinar, my first piece of advice is to think about them first. This is not about you, but it's about the you that's outside of you, all the other people that you're trying to build the relationship. And there's so many more of them that you need to try and reach and touch and, build that relationship with. So I would say the more you can figure out what they are looking for in the relationship, the better it will be. Because if you put that event on, it's likely to be built for them so that they'll come, and communication wise as well. So, with that said, how am I going to help you think about these relationships? Well, we're going to do these dating scenarios. Now, if you came to Complex earlier this year, you would have seen me talk about this earlier. And if you're here again, well done. You're here for part two. Do feel free to ask a question. I will be answering them. Maybe we didn't get to that question earlier this year. But if you're still here, that's good. That means we're building a longer term relationship. But you would have seen me go through these. We spoke about, these Tinder dates. Then there's we met at a bar, and then there's we've been friends for a while. And those are the three stages of the types of relationships that we're trying to build that I'm going to walk you through today. So let's start with the Tinder date. Now, like I said, I've been married a while. I've been in my relationship a while. I've not been on Tinder. I'm not going to lie. I've seen other people use it. Looks fantastic. But I'm not going to be one of those people that says Tinder's no good. I just don't know. But from what I've heard, it sounds very swipe left, swipe right, just kind of fickle information. Hey, you look kind of good. You seem to be age appropriate and you have a name that I don't hate. So let's go on a date. These are good criteria. I'm not sure that it works out all the time, but hey, if you got married from Tinder, well done. Like I said, I'm not here to give you relationship advice. But if we translate, what does that mean? If you go in a bit fickle and you're like, hey, I just want numbers, I just want bums on seats, what do you end up with? And remember, your relationship goal is that you're trying to get married, not just get another date. So if you do the Tinder way of like, yeah, you look good, yeah, you look good, you can come, let's go on that date, you end up with a series of dates, and that's all they are. They're just dates. Are they good? Are they bad? Who knows? They're just some dates, just some events that you went to or that you invited people to. And what you can end up with is a series of mismatched candidates. They probably weren't quite right, but we'll have a look at that in a second. And that's because you didn't collect enough of the data ahead of time to know who you should invite, and would they enjoy it? Have you built the event for them? It makes it a bit awkward. We did a survey about 3 years ago, and some of the people that answered, or quite a few, it was about a third of the people said they didn't like going to events because they found it awkward. Those engagements with each other, they just were like, who would I talk to? What am I here for? And so they just struggled so much, especially the younger generation. They didn't know what to expect, and therefore they found it very awkward going to events. And you don't want people to feel that way about your business, about your brand, and about your event, that you're just awkward. It leads to poor communication before the event and during the event. You end up speaking different languages, quite frankly. And then you're in that moment. This is that meme where someone's like, everyone can see that I'm awkward as well. And now it just makes me even more awkward, and it's no good. And if you don't get the right information about the people you're inviting, you end up with this guy. And I called this guy Bob. If there's any Bobs or Roberts on, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to offend you. I've just given him a name. But this Bob has fallen asleep at your event. Now, I know that's not what you want. You put your heart and soul into content, into branding and advertising, and you were doing your best to make sure this is the best event going, and your attendee has fallen asleep. And it's not because you're boring. It's probably because there was just that mismatch that we were talking about. So don't take it to heart. But so when your bosses ask you, hey, how was the event? You could say, well, 10,000 people came. If that was the event goal, fantastic. We got the number, tick, tick, tick. I've read lots of award entries, and people often give me those types of numbers to read. I had this many people come, which is a pre-pandemic number. I'm winning. Ha ha ha. And so they leave going, yeah, we've done it. Well, in fact, what you might have ended up with was a bunch of Bobs. And quite frankly, Bob wasn't who you intended to come. And what that means is long term, you are kind of shooting yourself in the foot a bit, because you end up spending money and getting no ROI that follows up, because Bob isn't who you wanted. So, how do we turn this around? What should we be doing instead? Well, I work in marketing. I just happen to run events as well. Well, some people do. Some people do the dual. We do have event planners all throughout Cvent who are great at events. And pre-pandemic, they kind of ran the events. We did our marketing. We barely spoke to each other unless we absolutely had to. But now we are in each other's pockets. They want to know about our marketing funnels. We want to know how their events are going to support our marketing funnels. And we work together practically daily to figure this out. So you may have seen this before. It's that, typical marketing funnel of awareness, discovery, evaluation, and so on and so forth. I put this on here because actually what you can start to think about is, who am I inviting and where are they in my funnel? Do you have the right audience? Are you inviting people that are at the awareness stage or the discovery stage? Why are you inviting them in the first place? What is it you want them to gain out of your event? Not let's have an event and who should come, but who do we have? Let's have an event for them, because maybe an event will enhance the stage that you're trying to enhance. So it could be that they're in a discovery phase of your product or of your brand. And we want an event that's going to help them to really get hands on with discovery, to figure out, is this something that they're very interested in? That's how you build that event for that particular group. Or maybe it's not, based on discovery and evaluation, but it's based on first timers. They've never seen X before or Y before. So you can really get, selective with how you start to think about both your audience and therefore the event you build. And once you've done that, you want to find that information, you want to validate that information. So you, with your marketing team, should look at your internal systems and say, okay, I think this, so we're going to send the invite out to these people, but let's validate that when they come in to register. I think X, let's validate it in the reg process. And that way you can start to create some dynamic reg paths where you say, well, I think you're a first timer, so maybe go down this path and answer these questions, and then I will build for you. But if you're a speaker for those first timers, or if you're a supplier, go down this path and I'll build something for you to help you connect to those people in the right way that will work for you during the event. So really and truly, you're spending time not swiping left and right, not being fickle, not basing it on just an image and a name and a job title. Because again, people do that a lot. Well, they've got this job title, they must all be interested in this. Not necessarily true. Maybe that's your first identifier, but you validate through registration. So, that being said, with the Tinder date, gotta love a Tinder date. I feel really bad because, like I say, you may have all met your husbands and wives and partners on Tinder, and I'm poo pooing. No, I'm not. But I'm just saying, try not to be shallow. Get a little bit deeper with that audience selection in the first place. Do a bit more than swiping left and right. Talk to marketing. If you work in marketing, fantastic. It probably means you've got all the data at your fingertips. You just need to integrate it with your event tech platform, like I say here, and then communicate based on a mixture of persona, industry, funnel stage, previous activity, and what they've done. But generally, I'm going to say, I think I'm going to put out there, Tinder dates, not for me, especially when it comes to events. I think you've got to do a little bit better than Tinder. So don't forget, as I'm going along, you can ask me questions. If you have things that you're thinking about integration, or how do you get that perfect partnership with marketing, feel free to ask me questions along the way because I will answer them. And I'm checking in to see if anyone's chatting. Oh, good. Thanks. Thanks. You like my family. You think they're beautiful. I think they're all right too. So let's move on to the next section and just keep chatting in there. I will be checking as we go along. So the next one is, we met at a bar. I hear this is good. If you meet someone at a bar, gives you time to connect, to talk, to have those funny laugh moments. Oh, maybe really laugh at the bar. It sounds like it's building a better foundation than the swipe left, right. So what can happen is you go on a series of good, no, wait, not good, great dates. You met at the bar, then it phoned you up, asked you out. Yes, let's go. And that's because there was a bit of foundation there. Dates are great. And in the world of events, this can be that your events are actually great. You've got the right people in the right place at the right time, and your events are doing this. They've got love hearts going all over the place. Sounds fantastic. So you're asking me, so what have I done wrong there? I did what you said. I got the right people. We had great events. What's so bad about that? Nothing, except let's get the violins out. What happens in between? So, like, after that great date, you just get ghosted every single time. Have you ever been in that situation? I remember pre-husband where you had a date with someone and then, like, you're just waiting for them to call you and you feel like a loser, quite frankly. You just sat there, watching your phone. Your friends are like, "Don't watch your phone, otherwise they're not gonna call you. Come out with us, have some fun." This is what it's like in between the great dates. Nobody wants that. They never call until setting up the next date. Well, what is this? What this is doing is providing this short, sharp endorphin rush engagement. And this is the kind of short term engagement that sounds good at first, but you kind of want to get away from it. I'm going to show you what this represents. So, you met at the bar, they ask you out, you feel good about yourself, your endorphins are going up, you're on your way to this high. Then you have the date, it's an extreme high. But if there's nothing in between, you crash. Why won't they call? What's happening? Oh, they did call. They asked me out again. We're going to set up a great date. We're going extreme high. Boom, crash again. And this is what's kind of happening with some of your events. You're having lots of these high moments where it's like, wow, it was fantastic. But in between the events, there's not really enough to keep your audience going that's helping them to remember why they liked you in the first place, or what it was that, when you had that first meet cute, I think that's what it's called, that, what was that about? Okay, well, they don't really care. We had the event, whatever, I'm going to crack on with my life. You kind of want to avoid this because people will start to think, well, am I wasting my time? Should I keep going? Like, if you had dates like this where you don't get anything in between, would you not start to think, they're not really that serious, they're kind of wasting my time? Think about those events that maybe you've been to where you had a great time. I mean, imagine the best concert you ever went to. Those are some of the most extreme high events that you can go to. Could you imagine how good it would feel if the concert organizers, not the big ticket masters, but like the actual, Taylor Swift group or Beyonce or U2, can you imagine if someone from their group kind of got in touch with you and said, "Hey, Rachel," from the chat. "Hey, Rachel, so glad, saw you in the concert, saw you were there. Why don't you come along to our next da da da? Or why don't you check out our website where we've got this special stuff for you?" Could you imagine how special you'd feel rather than being ghosted? Well, that's exactly what this section is all about. If you're having all of this great date during, you're having the smiles, the dances, the laughter, there's that more getting to know each other, but you miss all the stuff around it. What you're actually missing are the buzzes that keep your endorphins going and keep you interested. So in between the dates, it's like a little text. "Hey, how you doing? Thought about you this morning. Oh, great, still there." Or send you a video of what happened on the date. "Do you remember this moment?" "Yeah, I do actually. That was really fun." And it keeps you going, it keeps you engaged, and it keeps you feeling like this person or the organization is taking you seriously. So let's turn that from dates into events. Still at the events, you have smiles, sometimes you dance, you laugh, you take the videos, handshakes, all of that, getting to know each other. In between the events, maybe it's not text messages, but maybe it's they came back to your website because you sent them a little bit of something, drew them back in, click form completion. Then that sparked another conversation. You gave them a bit of content. They did something else, but you remind them, "Do you remember that event? Do you remember what happened? We had this session. That woman spoke. Let me send you this." Then there's something else, leads you to a marketing piece. There's so many bits on that journey that you can send them that when you next get in touch with them to say, "Oh, and by the way, I'm having a round table," they're like, "Yeah, sure. You've kept me engaged all the way along. You've given me the right content for me because you knew who I was in the first place. And well, why wouldn't I come to your next event?" Which means they're even more engaged at your next event because they are ready to absorb what you've been giving them all the way in between the event. So, what I say here is if you know a little bit more about the people that you're trying to engage, you can put them in the right marketing channels. So, there needs to be that level of integration I was talking about earlier, where all the data that comes from your events goes right back into your marketing tool, oh, events, yeah, into marketing tools. And then the marketing team can kind of help you to pre-populate for your next event, to help you to understand, what is the likelihood of people coming to your next event. You can just bounce between each other and figure out, well, they've clicked and opened 5 different emails since that event, probably likely to come. In addition, if you're using, good event platforms, kind of like Cvent, don't want to overpitch it, you can figure out, who's abandoning you as well, who's ghosting you. If you're sending them the emails and the, registrations come along and they're kind of popping into the website and then going away, you can look into the data and say, well, they started, but they seem to be abandoning. And then marketing can help you go back in and say, oh, let me re-engage you slightly to push you back into the event side of things that you might not abandon, re-engage with the tool and actually register for the event. And it also helps you to minimize attrition as well on site. If you've got people that are more engaged when you invite them, you know more about them, you go back, reach out to them, you're less likely to get them just saying, oh, I can't bother to go after all, which has been a big problem. I know sort of post-pandemic, there was a big issue with attrition. We're still facing it with some of the events we do, and we really have to kind of over communicate in order to minimize the attrition we get on site. So take some action pre-event. You have to, get them to have that almost, what am I going to do when I get there? Make it less awkward. Remember I spoke to you earlier about the survey? A lot of the people that we speak to say, if I knew more about what I could do other than it's a room and I'm coming and the sessions, why don't you get them to schedule those one-to-one appointments in advance? Get them to think about, is there a way that I can talk to your exhibitors before I get there, so that I know that when we get there, we're going to have really meaningful conversations. And then I always call this the birds of the feather hosting. Can you have uh, like-minded people that come together where you say, well, you're all first timers, or you're all in discovery, or you're all something, that will help them to have a nice meetup. And that way, when they get into the meat of your event, they know each other already. Sometimes people even do that with fun runs in the morning, or they'll have gamification in the morning, coffee of the morning, just something that helps these people to feel like I'm walking in with a group of people that I kind of know already, so I don't feel so by myself. Here we've got, setting up your conference avatars. Pictures do help. I know I kind of said about the swipe left, swipe right, but if you have pictures in your conference profiles, it really helps people to think, I know you, I've seen you somewhere, and that normally can help to be less awkward. Again, you can help people to build up their session agendas. We do conference guides, I think what's it called, to say, hey, if you're coming to our conference, here's a guide for you as a well seasoned Cvent user. Here's a guide of what sessions we think are best for you to go to. It gives them a reason to come. They can even show their bosses if they're thinking, if they're on the fence and saying, I'm not really sure if I should go to this event, they could show their boss the attendee guide and say, well, actually, look, there's a real reason for me to go. I'm going to get this session content. That's, again, building relationship, because you're giving them that kind of, can't wait to see you there. You could enjoy these types of things when you get there. So it's all that know before you go information. Speaking about can't wait to see you, kind of obvious things here, date reminders. Maybe, we did a partnership with Uber last year where we got people some, free Ubers to come along to our conference. Give them that information. If you're doing any activations that are peripheral to your event, you really have to over communicate it. Don't tell people once, they won't remember. You have to go again and again and say, look, this is for you. We've made this for you because we heard you. We know. I've done things in the registration this year where I've asked people, what station are you coming in from? A, it helps me to track sustainability so I can do my carbon tracking. But B, it helps me to know, is there a service that I could offer if most people are coming in from the north of the country or they're getting into a particular station? Can I offer them an additional service because I now know more about them than I did before? So think about that data you're capturing in Reg. It's not just about you. Like I said, it's not just about your conference and what you're putting on or your event or your roundtable. It sometimes can even be the, hey, let me get you a coffee on the way because I know you're coming from a long distance. You just never know what you can provide to make people feel good. And I put here, am I likely to be home late? So when you were dating, when you were younger, if anyone had those, parents that were like, make sure they get home by X time. In this occasion, in these times where some people have children or just have responsibilities, dogs, cats, they want to know what time they're going to get home. So if you've got like a post-event, drinks or party, try and give people that accurate data to let them know, look, you're going to be out, out. So be prepared to be a little bit, woo, and you're not getting home on time, or we're not going to keep you out late. It's a quick drink, just to work, and you'll be home in time to put your feet up for dinner. Let people know. They really appreciate it because then they can plan their day accordingly, less likely to ghost you as well. Finally, in this section. If you're thinking about, we've done pre, think about post. You want that. I had such a good time. It's not just about the survey, it's about all the things that I've been mentioning along the way. So we're going to kind of speed through these a bit. So, survey, very important. Please provide the feedback. Same with you. There's a survey today in the attendee hub. Please provide the feedback. I could be a terrible talker and I need to know it. And then we'll get you another one next time. So if you fill out the surveys and you encourage people to fill out their surveys, it helps you obviously to shape the next events to be more tailored to them. Send them sessions that they maybe couldn't watch, they didn't have time to watch, or you think would have been good for them, but you knew there was maybe an obvious clash in your schedule. You can send them sessions to rewatch. If you have additional on-demand sessions, we do that a lot for our conference. We'll provide sessions that are in the room, and then we provide sessions that are virtual only. And then the in the room, we can sometimes supply on demand, the virtual only. Sometimes we then send to the in-person people and say, you missed this, and do some cross promotion there. Related content. As a marketer, I make tons of content. If you've done an event, it's probably that you get those warm moments. Like I said, endorphins are high after an event. So it's a good time to say, yeah, I might also like this, which I made 2 months ago, but you've just come to my event. So, hey, what about this? Make sure you give them that cross promotion opportunity. I would say, continue the conversation. The meetups here, the idea of meetups is that they don't have to be as big as an event. They don't have to be, another event to follow an event. What I'm about to say is going to sound slightly contradictory, but they can be smaller, less organized, less sort of contrived events. So it's like, I heard someone say at one point, should we do like a dog walker meetup for all the people that have dogs in a particular area? People loved it. And, sometimes it's just that birds of a feather thing, met you an event. Why don't we continue the conversation with a meetup rather than waiting for the next big event that you're doing? You can create smaller meetups. They can be virtual or they can be in person where you've gleaned enough information that you think, hey, I need to carry that on with you. I know you're not quite ready to do all the things, but let's at least meet and talk about this thing. I've had some of my best B2B relationships from smaller meetups where I felt like I was valued. They personally invited me. The person that was organizing it was there in the room. So much you can do with that. So I can't emphasize that enough. Event recaps. This is slightly different from the session and the content recaps. This is the reel that you get after an event. That's like, wow, 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 what a moment. We do a lot of that after Cvent Connect Europe and Cvent Connect US. We have great event recaps. If you haven't seen them, please feel free to go to LinkedIn. You don't have to overspend on these things. You can maybe make it such that there's an area where everybody that attended the event can drop their videos, and then you can just pick a selection of phone-based videos. If you've got a decent phone these days, you can get such great footage. So just splice it together really quickly, put some fast-paced music over it and say, you missed out, there's some FOMO, you should definitely come again. This is the equivalent if you're on that date of like, hey, remember this moment? Remember that moment? Endorphins go up again. So don't forget to do that. Message your new contacts. I speak about first timers a lot. People that are just engaging with you, that first time, please, those are the people you have to message. Some people will come along with you on the journey because they've known you a while. There are people that were just dipping their toe in the water. If you miss them, you've missed a trick. So new contacts, very important. And then something new, a new functionality for Cvent this year, which we're doing on our attendee hub, is we're giving you the opportunity to explore other events that either we're hosting or that we'll be at. And that's within our attendee hub. And that will be available for anyone's based in Europe and it's coming to Cvent Connect Europe, or if you went to Cvent Connect US, you will see that there is a section in there for upcoming events, additional events, and we will try to showcase that for you. So that's something you can definitely do when you're having your events to say, meet us in Frankfurt. We're going to be there too at IMEX, or we're going to be in Vegas for something else. And that way people can say, oh, great, I saw you, I went to your event, and I can meet you again when you go to Barcelona or wherever it is you're headed to for your next event. So I'm just going to highlight that last bit again. I want to know how your date went. Fill in the survey. Can't say it enough. Please do remember to fill in the survey at the end of this. So nothing wrong with meeting at a bar, I don't think, but you're going to have to offer more than the high endorphin of the dates. It's more than just the day of the event. If you keep doing that, your dates are going to be great, but people are going to start looking for more, and you need to be ready to offer it. I need you to get to know me in between a little bit. Ask me what my likes are, my dislikes. Send me something else so that I don't feel ghosted. And that way you can use what you know to suggest more stuff to me, like I just went through that I might like. And hey, did you notice in that section I didn't meet any of your friends? I'd love to meet your community. I'd love for you to be like, hey, this is so and so. Hey, this is so and so. But if you just keep invite me to events and then ghost me afterwards, we're never really going to build anything. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a look in the attendee hub. Oh, I see someone's in from Florida. Love it. I'm going to go and check if you have any questions. And if not, I will keep on going. You've got, oh, here we go. So we've got a question. What is an example of someone who in this meta bar metaphor, okay, in events or marketing? So I would say, like I said, it's kind of like where you met at, say, a trade show. That's a really good example of met at a trade show, because that's where you tend to capture data. You have the conversation. It's good conversation. It's often, we're like, oh, take a load off, come and sit on my stand. And we have great, absolutely fantastic conversation. But then sometimes it falls down a bit because you capture and then I kind of start sending you stuff that maybe is slightly relevant, slightly not relevant, because I'm not really taking the relationship further. Next thing I'm like, hey, come to my event. You should come to my event. We met at a trade show. Come to my event. And then they come to the event because they're like, well, we did have good conversation at the trade show. And again, dips. So you have to kind of keep, we do what we call progressive profiling in marketing, where if there's a way for you to continue to get to know that person through what they engage with. So let's say you are slightly mismatching at first, you send them some content. What you should be doing is, in order for them to get that content, you're like, hey, Joe, because you already met them, tell me how many events you run a year, or tell me something interesting about you, then I'll give you this piece of content. Typically people are like, well, you know my name, so I might as well tell you this information, I'll get your content. You build up the profile over time. That's better than just, hey, I met you at a trade show, now come to an event. I hope that answers your question. But if you have a follow-up, or if you think that wasn't quite what you wanted to hear, put it in the chat or ask another question and I will get to it. So I'm going to go on. I will take more questions in a little while, and then we'll be doing a big Q&A section at the end. So we've been friends for a while. I personally think this is a good way to get married. I kind of feel like even if you started on Tinder, even if you met at the bar, even if you met in the street at the bus stop, building a friendship, I think, is a lovely foundation for a long-lasting relationship and a long-lasting marriage. I would say that because he was my friend first, but hey ho, everyone's got their way. But I think when you come together and you start to build over time, so let's take that trade show example. So you met at the trade show, you also saw each other at the after party, and then you kind of said, I'm going to send you something for us to chat. And then you chat, and then you get to know a bit more about their business and what their goals and their objectives are. And then you say, oh, well, I know this, so I should send you this. And they go, oh, thanks for that. That was really useful. Did you find it useful? Yeah, I found it useful. And over time, you're starting to build up a lovely B2B friendship that's just a bit different from what we've been speaking about so far. That way, you get to know their likes and dislikes, and you get to have those. Do you remember that? Do you remember that time when? Oh yeah, that was really funny. I have so many people in the events industry that I feel this way about, that I met at a B2B event, but over time, I mean, I'm not going to say we're like friends, but we are developing lovely, long-lasting relationships. And some of them I do business with, some of them not just yet, but the door is definitely more open than it would have been if I was just like, oh yeah, there's that guy from that business that we don't really talk. So what tends to happen in these scenarios is you have one great date and then boom, everything's going right, because after the date, they sent you the text, they sent you the flowers, you shared the pictures, they sent videos they thought you might like, and they found out more and more about you and swapped stories and all the stuff. And it just goes on and on and on. It's all the stuff that we've spoken about in terms of like content sharing and what you should really be doing. But in addition to that, remember we spoke very briefly a moment ago about community. I met his mum. I remember when I first met my boyfriend's mum, I don't think she liked me. I think she was like, who's this girl that you brought home? But over time, again, build relationships. They get to know you, you get to know them. introduced you to friends and cousins, and you went to the family gatherings. It wasn't just this siloed relationship where you're almost like a troll in the back closet that they roll out for a dinner and then put away. They're like, come to my house, meet my people. This is the land that I'm from. Those things tend to last. They tend to be taken much more seriously than the kind of dates we spoke about earlier. And in the event world, community these days is pretty much everything. After people have registered and you're trying to get to know them, you can start to really customize, home screens, second session recommendations, personalized schedules, all of that kind of stuff. But you can also then say, hey, you might want to meet Justin, who sounds to be similar than you, who's maybe building similar session content to you, in his agenda. Like, try and get those matches to happen. And I know as we're starting to implement more AI into our technology, we're trying to get more sophisticated with how we match you to other people so that you're feeling not so alone. You're in that meet my cousin moment, meet these other people that might be thinking a little bit like you. So if you think audience first and you gather the right kinds of data, it gives you much more of an opportunity to put those birds of a feather and those like-minded people together. In addition, you start to understand, what does your community look like, your community of attendees. You start to see if there are people that have specific interests and that's why they keep coming, or are they a super user and they're in your product all the time, or utilizing your brand or your service all the time. Or see how Bob still snuck in here. Can you see Bob there that's here for the happy hour? That's okay. There are some Bobs. We just have to accept them from time to time. But what we need to do is be able to identify them within your community so that you can kind of weed them out a little bit. And here you see engagement scoring, super important. If you get used to, how you start to group people and how you bucket them, you can score them. You can assign scores ahead of time to say, if you see a Bob, he gets a 0. But if you see an Amanda or someone else, here, that persona needs to be scored highly. So I know what to do with them afterwards. I know what to send them. I know how to engage with them. I know, whether to give them to a salesperson to talk to afterwards because they just want to talk product. Sometimes we try and be not salesy, but actually turns out we should be salesy because that person was specifically interested in your product. You shouldn't assume that I don't want to be salesy. You should just note who you should be talking to and how within that community. So that means that after your event, you can go back and you can foster that community of engagement that have maybe just had a spark of a build at your event and say, you guys look like you really enjoyed that. Why don't you come to this next round table? I'll build it just for you because actually it seems that there were enough of you to come together to discuss something important within your space. You can send, direct messages between, or sorry, you can encourage them to send direct messages between each other within the tool as well. And like I said, AI networking is a wave of the future. And I can't wait until it's fully in place because I think it's going to do such a great job for taking the load off you and helping it to just happen within the system. Here you can, also serve your on-demand videos. You can deliver the content that wasn't relevant to, sorry, not related to your event, but is relevant to your event. And you can just make sure that you use one place and one platform to continue to grow. And I think, like, when you start to understand your community better, you understand how to get those conversations flowing. Like I said here, with the many to many, was there a group of people that, you thought, I have to get these people together so they can talk to each other? Maybe there are people on this webinar today that once I look back at the data, I'll think, oh, you're all quite similar. Maybe I should invite you to something else that, will help you to talk to each other and not just me doing the one-to-many delivery that I'm doing today. But we didn't really, I say, when we do webinars, we don't really think about, I want engagement on the chat, but we don't really think as a webinar, how can we have you all talking together? But that might be something that we start to think about more as time goes on, of how we can adapt and evolve our webinars if that's something that you say you want in the chat. And then think about, like, different ways for your people to get together. I know in the virtual attendee hub, we have discussion groups where small groups of people can come together. I know there's been this move away from going both, virtual and in person and having hybrid, but where you do have an audience that maybe aren't coming for Cvent Connect, recently in the US, we had about 3,500 people on site. We had about 6,000 virtually. So for us, we knew we had to build it in such a way that they could get together, even though it wasn't in person. And, we had to build that within the tool because we knew that they were coming. So I think once you really understand your audience, you'll know what to build, what format to build it in. Should you stay hybrid? Should you not? I know that it's not it's not the optimal way that some people like to work because they feel like they're building two events. But if you have a community that wants to do that, you should consider pitching that up to your seniors and trying to get the budget to do that because actually you have the community ready to adopt it and to come in and to use your platform that you are building. So here I would say it's all about the journey. That's how I'll wrap up this section. You've got to think about what am I offering to who, when, what's the right thing at the right stage. Remember, we saw that funnel earlier. This is just the same kind of funnel, but delivered in a different way, in a linear way. But the journey is going all throughout this funnel. And here at the top, we've got MQL, SAL, SQL, and OPP. For those of you that are not au fait with these terms, these are marketing qualified leads, sales accepted leads, sales qualified leads, and an opportunity. And those are some of the stages that many businesses use to try and figure out, well, if I am trying to create new leads for, my sales team, I need MQLs. Maybe I just offer this type of event. And in between the events, I need them to see me in my press releases. I need to give them something a little bit experiential. I'll bring them back to my website and then I'll do something else and invite them to another event and so on and so on, so forth, until you get the goal that you want. But ultimately, they get the goal that they want as well, because remember, you're building it for them, not for you. So remember, solid friendships form often long lasting relationships, and you can build these friendships over time. You've got to care about what the other people want. And in order to do that, you have to listen. Always say you've got two ears, one mouth. You're built that way because you have to listen more than you speak. I've spoken a lot on this webinar, but it's because I'm the only one here, let's be honest. If I had a co-presenter, I would have handed over a bit, but you've got to listen a little bit more than you talk to the people that you're trying to reach. And that helps you to really understand, what are they after? What do they need? What are they looking for from you? And then you build it and they will come. If you adopt that audience first behavior, not offer, don't offer them, come here, do this, buy that, take this. Say, what would you like? Oh, well, I think I heard you say I like this. So you maybe might like this. Offer it in such a way that it's for them and they know it's for them, rather than you saying, hey, I just built this, so you should come and you should have it, or you should go to the event. And build that community together. Introduce partnerships, introduce suppliers, introduce, people that you think can help them, even if it's not you. Maybe in that instance, you're not the best person for them right now, but they know and they remember, hey, you introduced me to so and so, and I've been now working with them for a year. What is it you were offering again? And sometimes it's a long game, and it takes for them to come back into you and find out why they came to your event in the first place. So I'm just going to wrap up by talking about some of my best B2B relationships. These people are people that I met, in almost like a very light way. Hey, this is Anita. She works with ICE. This is Faye. She works for Fast Forward 15. She set up this business. Anita set up her business. And so did Mike here with Sleepy Media. And it should have been really these, straightforward, I buy a service, or you take some service and we sign contracts and call it a day. But what happened is we met each other over and over again at events. And in between the events, they started to offer a little bit more. Hey, I was thinking about you and I thought you might be interested in this. So Mike, for example, who writes our content, says, I saw this out here, an article. I thought you might kind of be interested in that. Don't need to do anything but just sending it to you just in case you thought it would be interesting. I'm like, oh, thanks, Mike. Thanks for thinking of me. And over time, these relationships grew. And Faye, who runs Fast Forward 15, which is a mentorship scheme for people in the events industry, over our talking, it turned out, I'll give you a deep story very quickly. After the Black Lives Matter situation happened, she reached out to me and she said, I just want to chat. And we just spoke for ages. And she said, I don't want to look biased in my organization. I know that a lot of the people that we have coming through our system look one way, and I'm trying to change it. What can we do? We set up a diversity group together. I'm still one of her diversity ambassadors. I became a mentor on her program. It just went on and on. She uses Cvent services. I provide her sometimes space to have her mentors and mentees get together. It's beyond. It's not a light relationship. It's now a very deep business relationship, but also someone that I could just call and say, I need some advice, and I've got tons of these. I just put 3 of them on the screen, but this is the kind of thing that you can achieve with your events when you do them right. And when you follow up afterwards in the right way and try and keep hold of those relationships and encourage your team to do the same. You can't do it all, but with your teams, or your sales teams, your support teams, your marketing teams, your senior leaders, get them to do the same. You can start to foster far deeper relationships and build bigger communities. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and start taking some questions. All right, so let's get into some of these questions. So let's start with this one. What sort of catchy content could you create from online events? Oh, I like that one. I think as a content person, I used to be head of content. So I would say it's the kind of thing you might have to think about prior to doing it. So um, I have a couple of ideas that I probably shouldn't give away for what I'm about to do. But I think if you think about the catchy content ahead of time, you'll set up the scenarios when you get on site. So, okay, I'll give you one that's really silly. So we had train strikes last year when we were coming up to doing our event, and it was horrific. We absolutely hated that moment. And then after the fact, we were like, we should have made fun of it. We should have made light of it, because loads of people will be in similar scenarios to us, where some bombshell comes and tries to hit your event when you're just about to do it. And so we kind of thought too late that we should have just, at the event been like, someone had gone up to one of our colleagues and said, "Did you know there's a train strike? Oh my God, you're joking." And just make a really fun video of a problem that we actually turned into something that was a really great case study, actually. We ended up, like I said, partnering with Uber. We ended up asking people, where were they coming in from? Can you car share? Do you need to park? Like we did so much. And we probably missed an opportunity there to capture. We had a wonderful group that were like, they picked people up all the way down the country to get to our event and drove, did a car share, had such a fun journey. We should have caught that on film, really, and made that into fun video content. So I think that's my answer. My answer is catchy content, probably more likely to come out in either video or infographic form. But if you try to pre plan, hey, let's make at least 5 funny videos, or let's make at least 2 infographics based on data we captured at the event, you have much more of a chance of actually making it after the event because you pre-planned. That's my answer to that one. Okay, let's see another question. Could you please share some suggestions or tools to manage progressive marketing you just mentioned? Absolutely. So Eloqua, Marketo, which is what we use, pretty much any of those form fill systems that are automated, you can do progressive profiling with. You will need to work really heavily with your web team to figure out what the logic is, because quite often you have to do lots of if and or statements to figure out how you do your progressive profiling. So it's if I have this, and you have to integrate it really well with your CRM system, so that if you capture information in, say, Salesforce and Marketo have to talk to each other so that you pre-populate. And if you use a tool like Cvent, Salesforce, or Marketo, or HubSpot, or whatever it is you decide to use, all need to be able to talk to each other so that the information that flows into Cvent goes into Salesforce. Then it goes from Salesforce back into your, marketing automation system, so that it can start to pre-populate some of those fields. And that way you're not asking the same questions over and over and over again. And it really works quite well if you know what you're trying to find out, because then you can say, well, if I have this, then ask this question. Once I've got this, then ask that question. And all those systems need to be able to talk to each other to do that. So you might need a bit of technical support if you're not used to it, but some great YouTube clips out there these days for how to get your most basic marketing automation to work. And HubSpot do a ton of courses on how to use their system. They're probably very one of the best, I would say, in terms of trying to figure out, how to educate people. But Marketo, you can take courses as well, and most tools you can. So maybe give it a go. Okay, next question. Okay, any suggestions for shareable moments done live for social that aren't too cheesy? Okay, currently working on an accounting audience, so shaving one's head, not really appropriate. I love that. That's such a far step from accounting and shaving your head. I would not have thought of that. What other ideas are there for shareable moments? Okay, so we've asked people, so if you're not going too cheesy, if you want to stick to kind of business, we've asked people at events a mixture of things like, what do you think the trends are going to be for 2020 X? What do you think the trends are going to be? And I think it's a first step. And I know it sounds like it's still a bit boring, but it's not, because people give you all sorts of answers that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Second question we've asked is, what do you love about your job? What do you hate about your job? Right? So, what do you love about your job can sometimes ignite a gushy moment where someone's like, do you know, I really love this, that, and the other. And then we did like a love stories campaign in February for Valentine's Day, because we asked enough people at our events and the events we went to. So even trade shows we went to, what do you love about this? What do you love about coming to these events? What do you love about your job? What do you love about working in events? What do you, da, 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 on and on. But also asking the other question, what do you hate? What do you hate about X? What do you hate about your job, or the process you've had to do today, or something like that, can actually spark some real funny answers, because it's people often feel a bit naughty, like, I probably shouldn't say it, but I really hate when. And then you can take some of the love and hate answers you get to really blow it up. Like we had, and even the trends, like sometimes people will start talking about like a tech trend. I gave people a tech trend recently, at an event, and they were like, oh, I didn't think about that. And that could spark more content because you actually want to investigate that trend further. So other shareable moments might be setting up. So when you're going through your event setup, just filming some of the behind the scenes, how hard it was to put all the baggies out on the chairs, and then you do like a fast forward where you follow somebody, or you set up a camera with them literally laying out things on each chair, and then you like fast forward, and then you have them kind of going whoo at the end. And then just recently, I don't know if we can move to share this after the webinar, but we recorded like an Avengers style video where each of the planners that worked on Cvent Connect US, and I was an honorary planner just for that time, we all recorded a short clip of us doing our job, but we gave ourselves like the I cannot remember what my name was now. I was like the Swaggerlicious Marvel or something. So give everyone like a fun name just to show people who worked on the event that you're actually running, because we don't get a lot of kudos. So it's actually nice sometimes to show people these are the Avenger team that came together, that assembled to get this event to work for you. I think again, video content's probably the best for this kind of stuff. All right. I think, have we got any more questions? If not, I'm happy to wrap up. I'm happy to take some final questions. If that was it, then I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to give it one more second. And there it goes. Done. No more questions. So that's the end of this webinar. But that's not the end of what we do. We do so many things. Oh, I saw a final question come in. I'm going to ask my team, can we share the final question? Just because I'm here to answer questions. I don't want to wrap up if you're still here and I'm still here. Can we just see that final question that was coming up? I had to step away for a second, so I apologize if this information was already shared. Don't apologize, it's all good. But what are some of the examples of post-event engagement? I will give you a quick rattle through. It's sharing content that happened at the event. It's sharing content if you made content for the event, but maybe you didn't get to display it, or maybe it was for virtual only, share that too. Share related content that you may have made 3 months ago, but you think, do you know what? Some of my conference or my roundtable was about this topic, and I made this content 3-4 months ago. I still think it's relevant, so share that. I spoke about giving people other events that you're about to do. So tell them, hey, I saw you here. Do you remember that funny moment? Do you remember that moment where our CEO tripped over on stage? Didn't we all laugh? Well, why don't you come back and see us in September? He's going to be back again. Hopefully this time he doesn't trip. Like, you can really make light of the situations that happened at the event, whether they were good or bad. I said about community meetups. So continue the conversation. If you can have any opportunities to take small groups of people and continue the conversations, do that, because they will really appreciate that actually it wasn't just about you and your event, but you found a group of people that were like-minded, that wanted to get together post-event, and try and make sure that they can come together in some way, shape, or form. I think those are most of the things. And if you have a sales team that needs to follow up, hound them. I literally hound my sales team. I go back through the systems, I find the leads, and I figure out who they were. And I'm like, have you called them yet? Why have you not called them? I don't think they hate me, but I think maybe I'm not their favorite person all the time, because I cannot let it go. I have to go back in and see, well, who came? Why did they come? What did they like? What did they enjoy? Hey, Joe, call them today, so that they don't feel like they've been ghosted. So those were my quick things too that I think I could share with you. And on that note, I really am done. I think that was the last question. So I'm going to just share with you, like I said, some of the upcoming events that are happening soon, because it's always good to tell you what's coming next. So we've got more webinars coming up in August. We've got one here about data integrations, about one specifically for life sciences. So that's a birds of a feather moment right there. About extending your brand's reach, and about the power of personalization, which is amazing, because if you can get your personalization right, you hit a lot of the goals of this webinar that we've been speaking about today. We've also got how to build a rockstar webinar program, the magic behind creating world-class meeting programs, and finally, amplify your live events, tips for maximum impact and engagement. So those are all our upcoming webinars. And you'll guess what I'm going to say now. I'm going to say, please don't forget to take our most wonderful survey. I need to know how I've done. Have I been good? Have I been bad? Is it a little bit too much energy for you? Well, I'm sorry if it is, but I'm just trying to keep you engaged and informed. But please do take the survey. I want to know. I really do. We always want to know, so that we can know how to do better next time. And on that note, I've been Felicia Asadu. I continue to be Felicia Asadu. I've really enjoyed having you. Thank you for asking questions and engaging in this webinar, and we hope to see you on the next one. Bye.
Ooh, baby, yeah, I'm a fool, baby. Gotta excuse me. Tell me what's your name again? Can I go shotgun? Wanna have a first class view. Wanna be the one who gets to choose underneath the sun. Got these shades